Where are my Texans at?
Woo! Woo!
I have to tell you, it does my heart good to look out here on the south steps of the Capitol in Texas and see a day that I wondered would ever happen. This last Monday, 13 years ago, I became a member of the Texas Independence Movement. And I wondered if this day would ever come. I wondered if the people would ever get fed up so much that they were willing to take Texas back. After we were invited to speak, I had a quote that just kept popping up in my head from Thomas Jefferson. And I know it's funny because when they recently did an article on independence and secessionist movements, I think it was in Slate, I think it was actually the Wall Street Journal article, they talked about how kind of quoting Thomas Jefferson in a movement like ours is somewhat cliche. But I have to say that if the guy's got something to say about secession, I'm willing to quote him till the cows come home. Well, Thomas Jefferson, this quote kept rolling around in my head, and he said that no attachment to any nation on earth should be greater than our attachment to liberty. And at that moment, I knew exactly which part of the sovereignty or secession rally we would be talking about today. There is a lot of talk going around about sovereignty. There's a lot of it. People are extremely concerned with what's coming out of Washington, D.C. And I got to tell you, it's about time, folks. This struggle did not start when Barack Obama was elected president. The encroachment of the federal government preceded him by several decades. But for some reason, the people are waking up now. And they are saying enough is enough. It's easy to try to pin this as a Barack Obama problem. But this is not a Barack Obama problem. This is a federal government problem. I had a conversation with a gentleman over here just a moment ago, many of you saw it, who was very upset that we were here protesting against health care. And I have to tell you, his name is Ed, and Ed's a veteran. Ed proudly served this country and fought for our rights and for our Constitution. And while Ed and I may not agree on policy issues, the one thing that we can agree on is the Constitution and our rights are inalienable and they are worth fighting for. Now, unfortunately, Ed and I have fallen on opposite sides of a particular issue, and that issue is the legitimacy or the acceptability of secession. But as reasonable individuals, we can have reasonable conversations. Unlike these quote-unquote elected officials in Washington, D.C., which try to have unreasonable actions couched in reasonable arguments. They try to reason out through fear, through justice, their lingering encroachment upon our rights and upon the Constitution. And in that, there is no agreement with us whatsoever. You know, we're standing at a crossroads, folks. And this crossroads for us here in Texas is embodied in this statement of this rally: sovereignty or secession. And it presupposes one big thing. It presupposes that Texas will make a stand on one or the other. And I think that is a reasonable assumption, knowing what we know about Texas. At the Alamo, the defenders of the Alamo had a choice. They could defend it with their last breath, or they could leave. And they made a choice to stay. They made a choice to die. They made a choice to make a stand for something that mattered against a dictator. And strangely enough, in 2009, we find ourselves in a very similar situation. Not that we're dealing with a single dictator, but we're dealing with an entire system that is bent on tyranny, that is bent on expending its rules and its rights into your pockets, into your freedoms. They are hell-bent for leather, folks, on taking away what you've got. They want what you've got. You've got a spark of liberty that lives inside of you because you're here today. It can't be legislated. It cannot be socially engineered by some board that they try to create for the Department of Energy. No, it can't. It lives within inside of you. And we talk a lot about Texans having that spark. And it kind of flared up a little bit during one of the tea parties on April 15th. Where Governor Perry, and I'll address the issue of him later, when he was giving a speech and the crowd began to chant, what? Secede! 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 That's what they chanted. So they asked him afterwards, what do you think? He said, well, we reserve that right. If things get so bad, we reserve the right to leave. And I got to tell you, it's the first solid thing that he's done in his administration that I can agree with in many, many years. So here's where we stand, folks. We're here on the south steps, the south lawn of the Capitol. And on the top of this building, you see a statue. Do you notice which direction she's facing? She's facing you. And she was placed that way for a very specific reason. Because when they raised her to the top of this Capitol, they wanted to face her south. So she would forever have her back turned to that nation to the north that knew not liberty. So here we are, folks. With Jefferson's quote rolling around, we've had a lot of conversation here today. We've heard a lot of remarks about sovereignty. And it is indeed a course worth pursuing. But here's something that we need to remember. When HCR 50 came about, and I know Jerry mentioned Representative Creighton, before the Tea Parties in this building right here, they had a press conference about HCR 50. People here know HCR 50 is the sovereignty resolution. It's going around in many other states. And they had a press conference where Perry called the government oppressive. And then, pardon my French, but all hell broke loose. Because a sitting governor referred to the federal government as oppressive. So how dare he, right? In the minds of those people out there, how dare he say something along those lines? So the backlash came, and politicians do what politicians do. And they said, well, I have to tell you, HCR 50 is not about seceding from the Union. It's about succeeding in the Union. So here's my challenge to Governor Perry, who could not grace us with his presence today, or Representative Creighton, who authored the bill, or many of these other people who signed on to HCR 50. The federal government knew doggone good and well exactly what was in that bill, exactly what it meant, and exactly what Texas was saying before it ever passed the House of Representatives. So I challenge those guys that are in the House that supported that bill, Governor Perry included. I want you, if it is not about seceding from the Union, but succeeding within the Union, I want you to show us success. I want you to show us that they in Washington, D.C. are listening now. Show us that they are responding to what you are saying. Are they responding to you? Do you feel like they're responding to your voice? I want those guys to show us that they are obeying the Constitution. Are they obeying the Constitution?